Welcome to Accountable, where your business is our business. Hosted by David R. Peters.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Accountable, the podcast for CFOs by a CFO. Hey, my name's Dave. Thank you so much for joining us this week. So this is what we typically refer to as a follow-up show. So last time on Accountable, we were talking about different new business considerations, and I approached the subject from a bit of a regulatory side, a bit of a compliance side, and really just kind of from the standpoint of when I talk to new business clients, what do they typically ask about? And that's really what the last episode of Accountable was all about. And I got some good feedback from that particular episode. A lot of folks, I think, really enjoyed it. Some practitioners that I talked to, they really enjoyed it because it gave them, I think, some extra things maybe to talk about with their clients when they were discussing new business considerations with them. And so, certainly we're glad to help out our practitioner friends and partners out there. But then I also heard from some of my own clients and as well as some folks out there that were just kind of starting a new business, and we got a lot of really good feedback. And so people genuinely liked that episode. But one of the things that I consistently heard is that we had several people that said, Dave, why didn't you talk more about some of the things that are kind of more business development and marketing related? And I was a little bit surprised at that because that is not really something that, that I have necessarily been kind of formally trained for. I mean, I'm a CPA, I'm a tax practitioner, I'm a financial advisor. I've been a CFO, and I have helped start companies. I've helped run companies. And certainly we've needed to make business development decisions. We've needed to help give input, in terms of, trying to create strategy around acquiring new business. I mean, that's certainly been something that I've done. However, I don't know that I would necessarily always classify myself as a marketer per se. I mean, I think that there are certain people out there that would, identify a little bit more easily than I would as a marketer. I don't know that I'm necessarily a marketer, but I think that as someone who has gone and started new businesses from scratch, I think that a lot of folks, especially if you're in financial services, you really are just trying to figure out and trying to find your own way. And maybe that is what resonated with people. So I'm not really sure, but I've had a few people that have said that they wanted me to talk a little bit more about business development and marketing. And so I'm happy to do that. Like I said, I have gone through the challenge of starting a business from scratch. And so I'm happy to offer what I can there. And I hope that this podcast is helpful to all of you that are out there. There's a lot of books out there. There's a lot of information on the internet about marketing and, just kind of how to market yourself. And so a lot of these things, I think, in my opinion, are things that, that I would look at and say that is something that works for that particular person. And so, certainly there's something to be said for that. I mean, if it worked for one person, it could work for you as well. And I do think that, anytime you read anything like that around business development or marketing, that it is important to remember that is one thing that worked for that particular person or that they've found that has worked. That may work for you. It's one perspective, though, I guess is really what I'm trying to say there. And I would say the same thing about what I'm going to talk about here today. I'm going to say the same thing. This is one perspective. It is not the only perspective that is out there. And so I would take it for what it is. If you are a CPA and or a financial advisor or an insurance agent or an underwriter in an insurance company, something like that, and you were thinking about going out on your own, it's intimidating. I don't think that there's any way to to really sugarcoat that. I mean, it's an intimidating process. When you go out on your own, there is just a lot of stuff to think about, and a lot of us that have chosen careers in financial services, the business development and the marketing side, I think, can be the most intimidating. Simply from the standpoint, again, a lot of you, I think that your training is probably similar to mine in that you may not necessarily look at yourself as being somebody who is, involved in marketing and is necessarily a business development person. And so all I would say there is that if you're going out on your own, the marketing department, unless you hire somebody, unless you outsource it to somebody else, the marketing department is you. And it has to be, anything that you don't sort of hire for, anything that you don't outsource to somebody else, by default, you know who that position belongs to. It belongs to you. And I've felt that way before. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips in terms of business development and marketing that I found that worked for me. Listen to them, take the ones that you like and try them. And I hope that they work for you. I would love to hear about some of the things that you have experienced that work for you. And the stuff that doesn't resonate with you, that's okay. I don't think that there's kind of a one size fits all, even in the same industry, even in financial services. I don't necessarily think that there's kind of a one size fits all way to go about and develop a new business. I just don't think that that it's that cut and dry. So with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you can do after you've started a new business. So, once you have an entity established and you've gone through kind of the process of establishing your entity and you've decided that this is something that you're going to do, one of the things that you got to think about is how exactly are you going to form partnerships, and how exactly are you going to acquire customers? And, if you have a situation where there is the opportunity to formulate a business plan and, to formulate kind of more of a formal marketing plan, I think that that's great. However, all of that stuff really is just stuff on paper. And, really until you kind of get out there, until you kind of test the market a little bit, it's tough to know if something that you are pitching is really going to fly. And, it's just tough to know. You can put numbers to stuff. You can do market analysis. I think that's a great idea. But the thing is that really until you get out there, marketing plans really are just kind of they're plans. They're something that is on a piece of paper, and they may work or they may not. And so I think it's just important to remember that, as you are planning stuff out. The best laid plans sometimes don't always work. That's business. That's life, right? I mean, sometimes we think about things and it sounds good in our head and we think that we've kind of logically thought something through, and then it just doesn't work out for one reason or another. And I think probably all of us at one point in our lives or another have felt that way about something. So, so that's I guess maybe kind of the caveat there. When I first went out on my own, I really felt this need that I just needed to connect with people and tell them about what I was doing. So my business development strategy was actually pretty simple when I first got going. I mean, I distinctly remember kind of sitting at my kitchen table after I had decided that I was no longer going to be working for my employer and that I was going out on my own. And I distinctly remember sitting at my kitchen table thinking, okay, now what? I was kind of over the excitement of the initial excitement of going out on my own and being excited about it. And, now it's like, okay, well, now I have to execute. What do I do? And the first thing that I did was I said, I just need to get out there, and I needed to just start telling people about what I was doing. And so what I did is I started to connect with some of the organizations in the area that I naturally gravitated towards. So I like doing a lot of volunteer work and being involved in the community. And so one of the groups that I was already volunteering for was Junior Achievement. And so, going to Junior Achievement events and not necessarily pitching. Okay. So that's the other thing is I think that people are kind of turned off by pitching. All right. And I think especially if you're in financial services, we kind of look at that and we say, ugh, that's just, it feels just kind of, I don't know, just feels not like something that people are going to be real receptive to. All I did was I would go to maybe volunteer events and things like that, state society, CPA meetings, things like that. And I would just tell people about what I was doing. And it doesn't have to be something that is overly formal. In fact, I would actually recommend not making it that formal. But people want to know about you. They want to know about you, and they want to know about the things that you are doing. So this is not hard. Okay. So think about everyday conversations that you have. What do you say to people? So most of the time, if you're at like a state CPA society event, or you're at an FPA meeting, or, anything else, what do people ask? They say, okay, hey, my name's so-and-so, and I work for so-and-so doing such and such. And then they say, what about you? Okay, well, there's your opening, folks. There's your opening. You say, all right, well, I just started a new business. And they say, okay, well, what's that business all about? And then you tell them. That's what I'm talking about here. I am not talking about a formal pitch at a meeting. If that is your way, that's fine. But I'm just telling you, again, this is what I found to work is, if you tell people about what you're doing, and you're excited about it, and I'm assuming that you're going out on your own because you're excited about it. If you're excited about it, that's going to show through in the conversation. If you're excited about it, people are going to get excited about it too. They're going to feed off of that energy, and they're going to ask you more about what you're doing. So just tell people when you are at the events that you are normally at. I am not necessarily saying that you should go out of your way to sort of go to organizational type of meetings, volunteer, organizations, professional society functions, places of worship, unless you're already going there. I mean, if you're already going there, then that's a great place. Anytime when there's kind of large gatherings of people, when you get a chance to really connect and talk to people, anything like that, those are great places to just tell people about what you're doing. And so that is what worked for me. That was one thing that I did a lot. And then the other thing that I did a lot was I listened to people. So I know I haven't really given you sort of anything that I think would necessarily go in a sales book or anything like that. Tell people about what you're doing and then listen to them and see if, whatever your product happens to be, whether or not that's maybe something that you could help them with. So, a lot of times people will tell you, but it won't be real direct in terms of what they're doing. They will say that they have a need somewhere. So, so they'll, so if I tell somebody that I'm a tax practitioner, naturally, they are going to tell me about their tax situation, and I don't mean in any degree of specifics most of the time, although, occasionally you get that too. But, a lot of times what they'll say is oh, well, I've been with my guy for 10 years and he always reaches out to me around November and, and he, the only thing I don't like is X. And then you say, okay, well, tell me more about X. That's not one that I've heard before, or that's one that I hear about a lot of times. My particular way of doing things is maybe a little bit different. And, if you ever want to talk about it, let me know. That's really what you do. It's not necessarily this hard pitch, this hard sell, but keep your ears peeled. Listen to what people are telling you just in the day-to-day functions that you do. You're at a local coffee shop, whatever. Okay. You talk to the same barista over and over again because you always order the same thing. Maybe they tell you at some point, they say, hey, you're a tax practitioner. Do you think that you could do anything for me? Would you be willing to talk to me? Or they may say something more subtle. They may say something like, well, I've been going to the same person for a long time and I just don't really feel like they really do much for me. And you say, well, hey, if you ever want to talk, let me know. I'd love to talk to you more about that. Those types of kind of informal marketing, I think, can be really powerful. And I think that that is a good way to sort of build your client base. It's also a way, too, to sort of build your client base with people that you are genuinely going to like being around. And I can tell you that that makes a big difference, too. Any practitioner that is out there, that I think a lot of us would tell you that have been out on our own for a little while. It's always a lot nicer if you have clients that you just genuinely enjoy being around. The work is good, but having clients that you enjoy being around and who you really like, that is going to be that much better. It's going to make your day-to-day life kind of more enjoyable and something that's going to be more fun. Don't be afraid to just have conversations and don't necessarily worry about closing deals right away. So that's another thing, too, is that, as you're kind of going through this kind of informal marketing process, if you're worried too much about making deals and, trying to close business, I think that people sniff that out. I personally think that people have a bit of a meter inside their brain that they can kind of tell when somebody is out for just kind of a sale as opposed to necessarily trying to connect with them. So don't be in a big hurry to close business. Just have conversations. Most of the time, especially when it comes to financial matters. So if you are an insurance agent or you are a financial advisor or anything like that, a lot of the time, people aren't going to necessarily, agree to have your particular service right away. That's just not what we do. We as human beings, we like to get to know people. We like to connect with people before we actually do business with them. We like to know the person on the other side. And especially when it comes to financial stuff, we want to make sure that we can trust the person on the other side. It's all about trust. If you're a CPA, you know that this industry is all about trust. If you're a financial advisor, you know that it's all about trust. If you're an insurance agent, you know that it's all about trust. And the reason why I say that is that, unless you are offering the cheapest rates out there and you're going to compete based off of price, there really is a lot of other people that this person can go to get that particular service. Think about it. How many insurance agents are there out there that sell auto insurance? How many financial advisors are there out there that can manage portfolios? How many tax practitioners are out there that can actually prepare the return? There's a lot. You have a lot of competition. So how are you going to make yourself stand out? I think that is the part that's important. And I think it's important to remember that, that your may resonate with some people and not with others. And that's okay. You're not necessarily going to create something that everybody is going to clamor for. There may be certain people that you just don't connect with. And so I do think that that's important to remember as well. When it comes to marketing yourself, I think it's important to be where you are comfortable. So where are you most comfortable in doing your marketing? And so that could be a particular place. So, maybe you are most comfortable kind of getting out there and presenting about financial matters. There's a need for that. I can tell you that, for me personally, that's a place where I feel very comfortable. That's a place where I feel very good. Some of you, that may not sort of resonate with you. And I can tell you that if you try to market in a way where you are not particularly comfortable, I don't think that works. That's me personally talking. And, I don't think that it works for a few reasons, because it sort of takes you out of where you're comfortable and it's going to sound flat to the person on the other side, to the potential prospect. And also, I think that it also probably feels a bit forced sometimes. And it's also not just going to be something that's going to feel like a chore to you. So, for example, let's say that you are trying to develop business through cold calling. Cold calling, there is nothing inherently wrong with cold calling. I don't have any sort of like moralistic problem with cold calling. I don't think that. But you have to be comfortable with doing it. If it's not something that you're comfortable with, well, then you probably shouldn't do that. I've had a few people that have listened to my podcast and that have said, hey, Dave, I would like to reach people through podcasting. And I say, okay, great. Are you okay with talking to other people, with interviewing guests, with, talking about your own subject matter? Are you okay with that? Is that something that you enjoy? And if the answer to that question is no, then they probably shouldn't do that. So again, not necessarily, deep thoughts here, but I think that if you are in a situation where where the marketing style that you have chosen, where the marketing channel that you have chosen is not something that you enjoy, I think that you're going to struggle to market in that particular way. I wouldn't worry about, trying to necessarily get the highest return marketing channel per se. I would worry about trying to, at least initially, doing the things that you're comfortable with, that you can do over and over and over again, and will feel good about that. I think that that is something important to figure out kind of when you're first getting going. One of the things that I did not too terribly long ago, about a year ago or so, was I had the chance to be on one of the AI CPA's podcast. I was on the Go Beyond Disruption podcast with Kyle Hannon. Kyle is a great host, does a wonderful job for that podcast for the AI CPA. And I was on a few episodes in a row on a regular basis where I was talking about the different stages of going out on your own. We were basically talking about what happens when you start a business from scratch and some of the new considerations. And I really dove deep in those podcast interviews with Kyle, talking a bit about some of these considerations, some of these things about marketing and what, and the importance of doing things that you were comfortable with. If you're not comfortable with, kind of public speaking, let's say, well, then you probably shouldn't try to, get a bunch of people in a room where you're going to have to talk to them about, education planning or something like that. That's not your gig. You need to do something where you're going to feel comfortable with it and you're going to be able to do it over and over and over again. If you like writing and you decide that that is the way that you are going to acquire customers, then find ways to get your writing out to those particular customers. You also need to think about where your customers are. So if your target customer is going to be at a particular place, if you're marketing to CPAs as an example, well, then look for the places where CPAs are going to gather. Okay, so for example, maybe state CPA society functions. If you are looking for a place where you're looking for folks that are in the auto industry, so then maybe going to trade shows or something like that. That can be a great way to begin marketing yourself. And the point is again, this can be sort of more formal marketing, or it could be very informal marketing where you're just kind of, walking around, talking to people and just telling them about what you're doing. So any of those things, I think are great first steps, especially when you're first getting out there. And notice here too that I have I purposely tried to give you some things that you can use that don't cost a lot of money. A lot of times when you first start up a business, money is tight. I think that is true for most people that are going out on their own. Now, there's always going to be the exception, right? I mean, if you have investors and they're investing, multiple millions of dollars with you, then that's great. Then you are in a different place than I think a lot of other small business owners that are going out on their own. But if you're like most of us, I think, then, you're probably funding a good bit of this business venture out of your own pocket. And if that's the case, then you're looking for ways where you can effectively effectively market and acquire customers without spending a lot of money doing it. So I'm not necessarily saying, go out and do TV advertising. TV advertising is very effective. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, though, if you're first starting a business, I don't know that that's necessarily your best way to spend money. Okay, so just the thought there. So do something that you're comfortable with, and then be prepared to do it a lot. And try to find ways that you're going to reach the customers that you're trying to reach. So whatever method that may happen to be. I also think it's important to think about how to measure success very early on in your new business venture. So, and success can look in a lot of different ways. I think we as CPAs, as financial advisors, as insurance agents, a lot of times we look at success in terms of dollars. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. So, ultimately businesses need to make money. If they don't make money, then they don't remain in business very long. So again, there's nothing wrong with that. However, here's what I would offer though. In the early days, a lot of times you're not going to be making a whole lot of money. You're going to have days where you're going to make $0, most likely, because you're not necessarily, putting out a product. You're not selling something. You're not selling a service. You don't have a job on a particular day. So you're going to have to measure success in other ways. And, a lot of times success in the early goings of a particular business may be just how many people did I tell about my business today? So I'm going to set a goal, let's say, of I'm going to tell 4 people about my business today. And that is the goal. And if I reach that goal, then I have successfully completed my task for the day. And that is, and I can feel good about that. If I didn't reach that many people today, well, then maybe I either set too high of a goal, or I need to focus more specifically on how to execute on my goals. So my point here is that especially early on, set goals that are attainable and look for things that aren't just dollars, because especially early on, you got to find ways to measure success that are outside of dollars, because for a lot of businesses, when they're first starting, you're going to have some $0 days. And so we got to figure out, how are we going to measure success even on those $0 days? What I used to do was when I was just getting started out on my own, is I would challenge myself to tell at least 3 people every day about my business, about what I was doing. And it was not necessarily a planned attack. It wasn't something that I spent a lot of time, agonizing over the right marketing strategy, or really even the right words. It was just that I was going to tell at least 3 people while I'm doing kind of my day-to-day tasks about our particular business. And so that was one thing that I did, and that's the way that I would measure success. I would say, all right, I got my 3 today. Hey, I got 5 today. I'm overachieving today. And then I would have some days where, I would only do 1 or 2. And I would say, you know what, I got to do better. I got to get myself out there. And so that's one way to sort of challenge yourself, I think, to get out there, and also put together metrics that, especially in the early days, that make sense. If you start saying, well, revenue per sale is ultimately going to be my metric. Yeah, it might ultimately be your metric, but in the early days when you're just trying to get customers, I don't know that focusing in on revenue per sale, if that's going to be your measure of success, then you're going to probably feel pretty unsuccessful for a little while. And so that's kind of more my point there. When it comes to the types of marketing that are out there, the big sort of places to market right now, and the things that I always seem to get inundated on here more recently, is email marketing and social media. And so I get a lot of cold marketing calls and a lot of cold marketing emails around, hey, let us, put us in charge of your email marketing, put us in charge of your social media. I think these days, that email marketing and social media are 2 places where that are pretty appealing for a lot of businesses. I think that, if you can put an email in the right customer's inbox, I think that can make a difference. However, I got a couple of things that I would be remiss if I didn't talk about when it comes to email marketing. First is that, when it comes to emails, I think that we get inundated with emails. I mean, I don't know about you. I receive several hundred emails a day. I don't know if you've ever actually counted how many emails that you get in a day. If you ever want some interesting statistics, count how many emails that you get in a day. I think people are inundated. In other words, it's a very loud place where you are hollering. And so, if your voice is out there, your email needs to somehow stick out in comparison to the other 100, or so that people are getting on a day-to-day basis. If you can't find ways to make your email stand out, then that may not be the best way to market your product. It may not necessarily be the best thing to do. With social media, I think that social media is another place that is also very crowded. Now, the right type of social media marketing can do a lot, but if you're going to go out and you're going to do something on social media, you have to do a lot of it. If you don't do a lot of it, I think that you're going to struggle to really have a voice. So if you're going to say, hey, I'm going to, do a bunch of blog posts on, on Facebook or whatever, I'm going to do a bunch of posts, then that can be a great way to market. But one, you got to be willing to put in the time on that. And two, you got to find a way to make yourself stand out from the pack, because there's a lot of other people out there that are doing the same thing. There are a lot of firms that are out there in financial services, by the way, that are folks that they have one person who is solely dedicated, or sometimes more than one person that is solely dedicated to just doing email marketing or just doing social media for their particular firm. And so if you are trying to do that in addition to, the other things having to do with the business, you're going to have trouble matching up. And so that would be the thing that I would think about. How are you going to make those posts on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook or whatever else? How are you going to make that stuff stand out? I think that is the important thing to think about. Whatever you're going to do on social media and with email too, do a lot of it. You're going to have to, because again, you got to stand out in some way. And so one way to do that is pure volume. So that I think is important to remember. I would also market with purpose too. So occasionally I have talked to CPAs who are thinking about going out on their own, and the thing that I always talk to them about is like, if they're going to do something on social media, if they're going to make some sort of social media post out there, there needs to be a purpose behind it. Why are you throwing this out there into the noise that is social media? Like if I put something out on, let's say Twitter, okay, nothing wrong with Twitter. Twitter's a place where, you can definitely get some attention. But why are you doing that? And what is the purpose of doing that? Is it to just garner attention? Is it to try to, get people to come to your website? Is it to try to get people to come to an open house? Is it, what is the purpose behind that particular post? And I think that you need to think about what is kind of the overall point of you being on social media at all. Is there a reason for it? Or is it just sort of serving just kind of because you think you should? I've had a lot of tax practitioners that have talked to me, and they've said that they just are out on social media because, somebody told them that, there was a good way to attract attention was to be on Twitter. Okay, no problem with that. But, but if that's the case, how exactly are you attracting attention? How are you allowing yourself to sort of stand out from the pack and be different from all the other firms that are out there? If you're not doing anything that is different, if you're not pumping enough volume of information out there, I'm not sure that you can really stand out. That's my opinion. So I do think that a lot of folks that I talk to, that's one mistake that they make, is they get themselves on social media, but then they get themselves on social media and they don't really have a purpose for being on social media. I tend to use social media to just to keep my hand on the pulse of kind of what's going on in the industries that I serve. I tend to look at what people are posting. If they are working in the insurance industry, I do a lot of work with insurance folks and financial advisors. What are they talking about? What's the hot button things in that particular industry? That's because that helps me understand, one, what kind of educational content they may need, what sort of things can I do to maybe help some of them, if there's resources that I have, if there's resources I can point them to. So that's the reason why I do it. And so for me, it's more about just kind of hearing what's going on with other people's worlds, with their professional worlds, and kind of what's going on. So that I think is the reason why I do it. Why would you be on social media? If you can't really point to a specific thing, I would question whether or not you need to be on it. Now, that being said, there is some point in just sort of making connections on social media to make connections. Sometimes your friends just want to hear what you're doing. And again, whether you're doing it kind of through, conversationally by going to CPA Society events, or you were doing it through, through social media and things like that, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that either. Sometimes it's good to just make connections for the sake of making connections, and just for the point of kind of being something that's being someone that is accessible. I think that that is, there's something to be said for that too. Nothing wrong with making connections for the sake of making connections, but again, I do think that it is helpful to understand what exactly you are on social media for. If you can't sort of point to something, then maybe you don't need to be on it. I'm a big proponent. And this is the CPA just kind of jumping out here. So for those of you that were wondering when the CPA was going to jump out, here it is. Okay. I don't believe in spending money and time on things that you're not using. And so, so if you're not using something, if you're not, if something is not helpful to you in terms of, building your business, then why have it? I'm a big proponent of streamlined operations. Those of you that have taken some of my CFO courses, that is true. And so I do think that is an important consideration. Why spend money on things? Why spend time on things too that are not helping you kind of work towards your ultimate business purpose? I think that that's important to keep in mind as well. Don't forget too that your time has value. I think that's another one that we as CPAs sometimes forget. We think about the dollars and cents behind particular products, but we don't always think about the fact that if it takes me 4 hours to do something, my time's worth something, because I could be doing something else in that 4 hours that it's taking me to build a reputation and a brand on social media. So you got to just be picky about where you're going to spend your time and where you're going to spend your money. And I do think that that's important, especially when it comes to marketing. Let me point out another thing that I get a lot of questions about, and that is websites. So websites are something that we tend to we tend to sort of use them in a few different ways. Some folks in financial services use their website as kind of a glorified business card. So it gives sort of nuts and bolts information. When, what are the hours of the firm? Are people allowed to, drop by, or do they need to make an appointment? Are people able to reach out via email? Are they able to attend events that the company might have? And it's sort of like a glorified business card. It's just kind of giving you kind of nuts and bolts information about the firm. And so it's kind of an electronic business card. I've seen a lot of those that are out there. If that is the case, I don't know that that's necessarily going to draw clicks. I don't know that that's necessarily going to draw new clients. Maybe it does, but I think that that's the tougher way to go. So I think when it comes to websites, you got to kind of decide, is it going to just be kind of information about the firm and it's going to be kind of be a glorified business card? or are you going to use it for other purposes? So what do I mean by other purposes? Well, could be something like maybe this is the spot that if you want to disseminate information out to a large number of clients, you send them to the website. So the website is really sort of an information portal, an information place for clients. Maybe that is the purpose of the website. If that's the case, that's fine. Make it easy for them to find that information, whatever that happens to be. Make it easy for them to find it. If somebody is going to your website and you want them to find particular information and you want them to utilize the resources on it, make it really easy to find. If, on the other hand, maybe you're using your website because that is the spot where the client portal is, maybe during tax time so that they can upload their tax documents, make it easy for them to find the portal. Make it easy for them to figure out how to pay you. I remember I had a mentor of mine that said to me very early on, he was like, well, Dave, he goes, don't make it tough for your clients to pay you. So that was his advice. And so that one stuck with me. And so, especially when it comes to websites, I mean, figure out what you're going to utilize it for and make it easy for people to utilize it for that purpose. If you make it so that they got to scroll and they got to click on a bunch of buttons, people aren't going to do that. Okay. I mean, think about how you go through and you visit websites. I mean, a lot of times, I can tell you if the task that I want to do, if it's very simple and it's hard to do on a particular website, it's hard to find the spot where I'm supposed to go, I get really irritated really easily. I'll give you an example. I remember one time I was trying to pay my homeowners association dues for a place that I was living at that particular point in time. And I could not figure out where to go to actually pay them. They said, well, you can pay online. And I looked and I looked and I looked and I could not figure out where I needed to go in order to pay my HOA dues. And I finally reached out to them because I got so aggravated. I was like, this can't be this hard. And it turned out that I had to click on a couple of different menus and then scroll down to the bottom of the screen and there was a button there. And I told them, I said, I'm really trying to do what I think anyway is kind of a routine task. Why is it so difficult to do that on the website? So when you're thinking about website design, make it easy for the customers to do the things that you want them to do. If you want them to click on a particular button to see the latest, tax information, or if you want them, want to make it easy for them to see the latest in the home buying, rates, so maybe the home buying that's happening in a particular area, mortgage rates, something like that. Make it easy for them to find it. Make it so that that particular item is right there on the home page. One of the things that I will share is I used to be the chief financial officer of compare.com. And one of the things that we figured out very early on was that people don't scroll generally. So if you would put something kind of, down below so that people had to scroll to find it, a lot of people wouldn't find it. So, a lot of us, when we visit websites, we are just looking at kind of that top of the line information, what we typically refer to as the stuff that is above the fold. So above the fold information, that tends to be the stuff that we tend to look at. We look at the stuff that is above the fold and we don't scroll. And so that's just, and when I say we, I mean everybody. I mean, look at surveys and things like that are out there where, people are talking about this idea. That's something that happens a lot. So if you want people to notice something, make it so that it's really easy for them to find it. Make it so that it shows up, ideally, make it so that it shows up on the homepage. Obviously, you can't put everything on the homepage. So we got to make some decisions there. But make sure that if you have something that's there, that you want them to click on, if you want them to get an insurance quote, make it so that the quote button's like right there in the middle of the page, right when they first get there. So, I put in the insurance agency's name, get a quote. Okay. Yeah, that one I can figure out, especially if it's a big, flashing button in the middle of the page. So, again, make it really easy for your customers to do the things that you want them to do. I think that that's an important piece to remember. Websites, figure out your purpose. When it comes to email marketing, figure out your purpose. When it comes to social media, figure out your purpose. Why are you doing these things? I think that is the piece that I find missing probably most of all when it comes to people going out on their own, especially in the financial services realm. They do things that they think they should do just because kind of everybody else is doing it, so why shouldn't I? And that's not necessarily bad, but at the same time, though, again, you can't sort of spend your time on everything. So the question is where do you draw lines? Where are you going to spend your money? And also, where are you going to spend your time? I think, figuring out kind of the purpose for some of these items, I think is probably something that is the piece that I see missing the most, and the piece that I would encourage all of you to be thinking about, especially if you are going into business for yourself for the very first time. So that is at least some of the things that, that I would think about when it comes to kind of marketing and business development for folks that are first going out on their own and first getting started in a new business. I think it's important to think about that stuff. I mean, I really do. It's, something that you have to do. I mean, so, a lot of us may not necessarily be comfortable with doing it. I don't know that I'm necessarily, comfortable with doing that kind of stuff. I mean, I think, if you're a CPA and you're listening to this, I don't know that I was ever really trained. I think I maybe took like 2 or 3 marketing classes when I was in school. And so when I went out on my own, I was like, where's the marketing department? You don't have one. So you end up doing things kind of by default because that's how it goes. A friend of mine would say you get the opportunity to wear many hats. And so that is, maybe some of the things to consider there. So I hope that this was helpful. If you would like to hear more, if you would like to hear me, kind of really dive in deep, take a look at that Go Beyond Disruption podcast that I did with Kyle Hannon at the AICPA. We'll drop a link to it in the notes for this particular podcast so that you can find it if you need it. And you can hear kind of maybe some other thoughts from me about going out on your own in the world of financial services. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope that maybe I gave you a couple of things to just hang on to, a couple of things to think about that maybe you haven't thought about before. If you would like to get a hold of me, please reach out. I would love to talk to you if you would love to talk to me. With that, folks, I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Accountable. Take care.